Thanks. Would you like to introduce the report?
Is that better? My name is Peter Moore. I'm the Programme Manager for the Oxfordshire Out-of-Hospital Care Model. This is a model that has been running for 2 years, initially through some central government funding. It's a collection of professionals from across services. You'll have read the report, so I won't repeat it all. Essentially charged with generating good outcomes for people who are homeless or at risk of homelessness as they're discharged from hospital, so avoiding discharge to the street and avoiding unnecessary readmissions and rough sleep and homelessness. Been going for 2 years. We've had some great success in that time. The figures are all in the report, which shows the impact we've made across services. And we were successful this summer in obtaining quite a large award from Better Care Fund to continue that work for the next year. And there's some money set aside for the year after. So today I'm seeking the approval to continue and the delegated responsibility to continue beyond that, should funding be available.
That was very succinct and to the point. Thank you very much,
Welcome.
Peter.
I'm happy to take any questions and talk more.
Yes, are there any questions or comments on the report from members of committee?
Thank you. I was just a clarification, and great news that we've managed to obtain this award, but I noticed that it said that this is by far the largest award that they've made to Oxfordshire. And I just wondered whether that meant that the project itself was able to grow, or whether we're just using, in the team itself, does that mean that there's more investment going into it and we're able to deliver more, or are we just extending the length of the current service that we provide?
Do you want me to answer now or take it?
Would you, if I can take Sandy's question. Sandy?
Yeah, so
Thank you. So
just before I bring you back in, Peter, James.
just a further question about the contract. I mean, reading it, I mean, clearly it's not ideal to have a 1-year contract. And I just wonder, do they ever give longer periods? I mean, I know there's a tendency to promise big sums of money and then just leave you hanging in the air. Is there any, do we know the probability of getting continuation funding and all the rest? You do talk about levels of risk and the ability to cut things short, but that's not ideal.
Thanks. I'll bring Peter back in now.
Sure. I'll try and work these buttons out. Okay, so I'll try and answer those in order. So the first question was quite a large award, just it is, from the Best Care Fund. And that's, we're not unconscious of the responsibility that brings to deliver performance and quality and value for that money. That money won't enable us to grow. It will sustain where we are. We've already had quite substantial growth from the original model, which was 4 or 5 professionals and 1 step-down house, to 27 step-down beds and what have you. We really now need to consolidate that, implement some of the learning that we've got and refine the model. And we're going through a process of evaluation with King's College London to see what the actual true level of requirement is. And that will inform where we go forward with this. Second question, per person cost. That's a tough one. I mean, the whole model is around just under shy of 2 million per year. We're not a cheap service. In a year, we would work with around about 300 people, I would say. And I could do the maths, but I haven't got that figure exactly to hand, but that's roughly where it is. There's probably about 150 people discharged from hospital. That's in the current evaluation. We've grown a lot since then. So we're working with larger numbers now. So we're in a stage. So for example, we went from 10 to 27 step-down beds in sort of February time of this year. I haven't yet got the full figures of how many people we're taking, but extrapolating from where we were, it'll be about 350 people a year for that money. Now, that's what it costs, what it saves, and King's College evaluation is quite clear on that. It's a lot more than that across all system partners. So there's a balance there. And then the contract, absolutely, we would love a longer contract. We're very lucky in that of the 17 test sites, that this was one of the hospital model across the country, we're only one of 2 or 3 that have continued at all. And we've done pretty well to get the best care funding. That's a 2-year window. We've got 1 year immediately. There's a significant sum put in for next year, depending on the level of need determination that we reach. As you can see, we're looking for a delegated authority to put a 5-year package in place with break clauses if the funding becomes available. Will we get a 5-year package from any one person? I don't know. I would love that if anyone can make that happen. I mean, obviously the Homelessness Alliance is a longer term contract, but we're not funded through that. So such things do exist. The one thing I would say is that the Integrated Care Board, who are behind Best Care Fund and funding us, are very keen to get away from short-term contracts. They've stated that as an aim, and they realise the lack of planning that brings, and the instability and the difficulty with staff retention and recruitment. So there's a desire to get away from that.
Excellent, thanks. Do any other members of the committee have any questions or comments? I'm seeing none. Neris, do you have anything to add?
No, thank you, Councillor Rowley. I think everything's been covered, yeah.
Great, many thanks. Okay, it didn't sound like we had any recommendations, unless anyone has anything to report. No, good. In which case, thank you very much. We note the report, and thank you, Peter and Neris, for attending. Jolly good. Thank you. Next substantive item is delivery of a new burial space. We have Joey, the cabinet member, Carrie and Emma, and Ian Brooke, the head of services, on your screens. Who's introducing this?
I'm happy to, Councillor Rowley, if you like.
Okay. Thanks, Ian.
So, Chu, are you about to go then? Sorry.
Yes, I can say a few words if you don't mind.
Thanks, Chu.
Okay. Yeah, members, you might know that we are running out of burial spaces in a few months. So the officers and myself have been working very hard in the last 10 years to find a suitable burial site. We have looked everywhere around Oxford and the neighboring district councils, but the only place we have found is the place that we own in Oxford Road, as we are going to Ospath. So the report in front of you is basically to approve the provision of a new burial space, and obviously to go ahead and submit a planning application and the capital budget of 2.4 million for the first phase. It hasn't been easy to reach where we are, and just want to take this opportunity to thank all the officers and actually members who have supported us in this route. I'll hand over to Ian now. Thank you.
Thank you, Chu. I think you covered the key points then very nicely, Chewy, so I've got nothing to add to that. Thank you.
Before I bring members in, do the other officers present have anything to add? No? Good. Okay, I saw Lizzie, Altaf, James.
My point is not about this. I just wanted to record for the minutes that I may gosh, sorry, my brain stopped working. I'm a trustee for the Oxford Preservation Trust, which is obviously an interested party in this, but just wanted to flag that but it's not as a disclosable pecuniary interest, just for transparency. Thank you, everyone. Sorry.
Thanks, Lizzie. Before I take in anyone else, can I remind members there are 3 exempt appendices, 2, 4, and 6 on your report. Does anybody wish to raise any matters on those appendices? You do, okay. In which case, can I leave your question on that to the end, because we'll have to go into confidential session for that. Can I take any questions that are not on? You have another question which is not on that appendix. Okay, so I've got you and then James.
Thank you very much. Chewy, yes, you said for 10 years, council have been looking, and I have been involved and be part of that discussion in the past, and I know very well all the background. It's good, at least we're moving somewhere forward. My question, it goes to here is about the delivery. On the modern.gov, it says that the matter should evolve the change through the 40+ years. There is a 45 years. So is that mean the meadow change, or is this, I think I read somewhere about this 45-year of operational barrier lifespans. So that means the lifespan of the place is 45? As I know, in the Botley Cemetery, which is also Oxford City Council, it gives to the people who bury their deceased, it gives them 100-year lease, a document for that land which they pay for, it gets for 100 years lease. So what will happen here? That's my one question. My second question is about the delivery mechanism and the equality impact assessment. I can assure you, I've read that is rather than impact, there is a lot assessment. There's not much talking about the impact, and I want to raise that. The Muslim community, the Jewish community, and there are a number of others, have certain requirements of the barriers. One is the time. They need to get it done immediately and straight away. Second, there are 3-4 different type of barriers. And for the Muslim community, I know they have 3 different type of burial, which are underground, nothing on the top. How does it go down? They have different methods. And we have discussed in the past, the cemetery manager agreed, and then Botley, they had all that facilities. So would that be kept same here as the equality impact on the diverse communities and their requirement is a difference? So would this be similar to what is in existence? And this, the lifespan is the major issue. And I can tell you from my experience that if this is 45 years lifespan, people are not even happy with 100 years, because in traditionally from those diverse community, once a cemetery, it is cemetery forever, and nobody touched that land and area. So for that reason, the first generation have been deporting their bodies, dead bodies back where they come from. But now as we are in third generation, so it is very difficult for some people don't have anybody left behind. So that whatever is here. So they have to obviously deal with it. So making sure that we are delivering for those communities and their reservations, that's the important, I think, part or piece in this. And my final question is, I had a long discussion with the cabinet member and the head of service in the past. We should look at the model in like Bradford, Birmingham, where the diverse large communities are. And I just highlight how do they do that. They involved somehow the voluntary sector. They try to train and tell some voluntary people. So this out of hour and 7 days week question is in a way, a third organization is involved, and there is a less cost of the burden on the council. So they can say, go ahead and bury 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock in the evening, because they arrange their lighting system and everything, that third party or the third organization. And those are certain plots when are plotting, it'd be good to have like a piece of different communities. And then if you have this third voluntary sector trend, so they take care of that. So that will resolve the problem of the delivery of out of service, and then this budget question and a lot of other, there's a long list of questions come with that. And I'm sure you as a manager come or face this day in, day out. So there are 3-4 questions, and I'll ask the appendix later stage.
Thanks. And before I bring officers back in, I had James.
Thank you very much. I've been reading, partly because it refers to the forthcoming budget process, and we're having a finance panel meeting tomorrow prior to the budget. In paragraph 26, it starts the discussion of the costs of investment, the incomes and the returns. So if you look at 26, 27, 28, 29, maybe what I'm really going to suggest is that maybe this should be slightly reworded, because I find it confusing. It says in 26, the proposed investment will only protect and not grow this income. But my understanding is without this investment, we would lose income, which we currently get. So there's an opportunity cost, which I treat as an income. Without it, we do not get this. So, and then and then I think we go into a discussion of the split of revenues and dividends or whatever between ODS and who will manage it for the council and the council. Maybe for presentational purposes, it's better looking at the group as a whole. I know we need an agreement with ODS, but you later on say in paragraph 28, given that the life of the new site will be, and we're going to discuss the lifetime, but it says for a minimum of 45 years, there's a positive internal rate of return and NPV and payback within the life of the asset in all scenarios against the costs of borrowing from a group perspective, which seems to go a bit against what I read out from paragraph 26, which seems to say it's not. So maybe it's a little bit trying to, I'm not sure that the outside world needs to understand too much ODS. I know it's important, ODS versus council, but my understanding is protecting is important because without it we would lose income as well as reputation. And in fact, if it's correct, paragraph 28, then you do talk about a fee increase later. But it seems to me this sounds a more positive proposal than maybe it did starting to read it. That was all. Thank you.
Thanks, James. Over to you, Choe.
Okay. Yes, thank you again, everyone, for giving us the opportunity to talk about this project. Yeah, in terms of the 40-year or 45-year lifespan, obviously, really pleased to have found the site we have, and it's very strong in lots of areas, but we in January appointed consultants to look at the design. So I think obviously we're sort of wanting to be cautious, and so until we'd actually had design experts look at the plots and how the design was going to go, then we've now been able to sort of develop how many plots should go on. Now, through planning, of course, that might change again through the planning process, so we can't be exactly sure on the final design yet. But yeah, in terms of the life of it, that will accommodate 45 years of burial plots. But of course, it won't shut after 45 years, so that's fine. People don't need to worry that their graves would be disturbed after 45 years. That wouldn't be the case. I mean, on the council website is the current rules and regulations in terms of when people pay for a plot, the sort of life of that. So those details are on there. So I don't know if that answers the question in terms of where the 45 years came.
Would that be not given 100 years lease as the bottling place?
Yeah.
The site belongs to the council.
Yeah.
That's our land.
Sorry?
That's our land.
So it'll continue.
Yes.
So people will have the lease of 100 years, as I have seen those leases of 100 years.
So in terms of the service, it will continue as close as it is at the moment in terms of the rules and regulations. So we're not seeking to change those. So things will continue as they are. Where there will be slight changes is just in terms of this site will have a more naturalistic character. So we're able to encourage sort of the use of sort of timber headstones as well as like matte stone as well. And then in terms of the amount of plastic, in line with the council's net zero policy and just looking at waste and recycling, we'd be minimising the amount of plastic that gets left there. So, but we're really seeking to minimise changes to the service in that sense. So it will continue as normal in terms of the provision for diverse groups. It comes on, I suppose, the Interfaith Forum is where we've been sort of meeting with the faith groups regularly over the past 2 years, I think now. So I probably at least 2 times a year, we sort of go to the Interfaith Forum for their input, which has been really, really helpful in making sure that we meet all the requirements of the different faith groups. So as far as possible, meeting with all those faith groups. And we've done that again recently through the consultation process on the outline designs. So we've met with the mosque leaders and met with the Council of Faiths as well. And that's been really valuable, all those inputs. And we've actually, again, had good comments back in the online consultation. We had over 430 people respond to that. And again, the question where we asked people, can you spot any improvements we can make in the design? That's actually been really helpful as we move into the detailed design.
Yeah, I think there's another question, the operating model and the out of hours. Yes, that's a very good question. I think we haven't really looked at the out of hours. If I'm wrong, you correct me, because obviously there's certain issues we should look after here. The land has got covenant with OPT. So we are actually in very discussion because there's limited what we can do as a council there. We will contract, obviously, ODS to manage the borough site. But I'm not sure, probably Carrier or Ian and Emma can talk through this, if it will be possible in practice to do out of hours burial.
It's the external lighting, wouldn't really be appropriate in that sort of rural area. So I think that would be difficult, but by all means, I'll certainly look at Bradford and Birmingham, those examples that you've talked about, and can follow that up and see if there's learning we can get from that. But just on the external lighting, I know we're seeking to sort of bring ecological benefits and landscape character benefits there. And as Councillor said, there is the covenant which protects the space for public recreation. Yeah. Can we move on to James's question?
My question, the chair, is not answered.
There will be an opportunity to ask further questions.
So the same question is a part of is not answered, chair. So
okay, there will be an opportunity to ask for further questions. Can we? We can't turn the meeting into a conversation. Can we move on to James's question, and then I will add you to the list. Thanks.
Yeah. Okay. Come back on that. Yes, you're right. This project sort of protects the income. So I take your point in paragraph 26. Yeah, I mean, we're looking at protecting the income and also obviously making sure that as a responsible council, we do sort of pay back the investment. Yeah.
Thanks. Okay, I have Lubna, Altaf and Mark to speak.
Thank you, Chair. My question is, one, on public record, I just want to say that, previously as a portfolio cabinet member, working with the interfaith community as well, I think that was really helpful. And I really want to congratulate you to even just make that progress to this point now. I know it's been relatively without trustees and other people who've been working on it from a very long time, saying like over 5 years. So yeah, that's very well done. I just wanted to ask about the layering. of obviously it's time of bereavement for families in Oxford when death occurs, and obviously once that happens, how long is it after? Is it once someone is deceased that another place can go on top? Does that work here in Oxford or not?
We'll take a group of questions. Altaf.
My same question, which is partly answered, as I mentioned, there are different type of burial. Yes, you mentioned the faith group and interfaith, all that, but there are, I know in the Muslim community, there are 5 burial committees. They actually bury the people, they pay fee for it. The leaders can talk about it, but the death committees, we call them, is like a committees, and they got the pool of funding and they pay for it, and I know 5 of them. So my question is, would that be samely allowed as at the Botley, as this place has got sensitivity and some confidential item we'll discuss later, but would that be allowed 3 different type of the burial which are required under the ground, and the on top, as you said, is this wooden headstone and slightly different with the environmental and biodiversity and trying to. So would we allow the death committee people or the people, whoever they are, to carrying on as they are doing in Botley, under the ground when you are burying, because there's a shrewd burial, there's just a box goes in with the wooden frame, there are some like walls built with blocks, and then on the top, obviously, there's a big change of this wooden headstone where there are some other marble stones being brought from different places in different world in Botley. So that's my previous question. So if you could please.
Thanks. Mark and Chris, and is there anybody else who would like to ask a question? Good. Shall we just take Mark and Chris, and then I will bring you back in.
Some of my questions were answered beforehand, but I just want to follow on from James about the 150,000 contingency for highway works. This is the 278 agreement, is that right? Because I couldn't find anything in the report about that, sorry.
Well, yeah, hopefully we won't have a 278 agreement, but this is contingency in case the highway authority would require that. But yeah.
Okay, all right. And we're quite confident it's all going to come in budget, not going to be coming back for additional monies.
Hopefully not.
And again, I'd like to thank all the staff, and Ian Brooke will remember this as well. I remember when there's paper was in my name back in 2011, and it's gone through various cabinet members and city councillors over the years. So thank you for getting thus far as well. So thank you.
Thanks, Mark. I remember that at all, and I'm aware that it has taken a lot of hard work by officers to get this to where it looks like it's going to come to fruition. Chris, lastly.
Thank you. A little bit related to what James is saying about ODS. And again, avoiding sort of straying into the confidential appendix, but I think we get a good enough flavour from the main report, which sort of summarises the confidential appendix. So in terms of the income stream and how that sort of pays for the investment and sort of makes it work financially speaking, we sort of get a bit of a flavour there of the diverging interests of the council and ODS and the sort of inherent awkwardness that results from sort of 2 distinct corporate entities sort of operating this in train and each of them hoping for the other to provide a certain sort of behaviour or guarantee, but neither one being able to make hard promises to the other one because they have various legal obligations which are distinct and yada, yada, yada. You see how this goes. But given that, what are the merits of this model of ODS taking the income and then the council sort of hoping to receive that in dividends, but maybe not, nothing can be guaranteed about dividends until it does or doesn't happen, compared to simply hiring ODS as people to do a job of work, like if the council was the service provider, and the council received the money and therefore could be absolutely guaranteed of those receipts because they are received directly to it, and simply hires ODS to do work for it. It seems like it would all work out in the wash the same, but we wouldn't end up with this sort of uncertainty of not really knowing whether things will add up as we would hope, until hopefully some dividends get paid at some future time. I wonder why we're going down that line.
Thanks, Joey, and officers, over to you.
All right, I'll answer one, and then I'll leave one for Lubna and Chris to the officers. I mean, you raise a very important question, Ataf, and I do respect you for that. We have been in discussion with Ajaz actually to go around the mosques and to speak to imams about what actually you are raising. As Kari says, it is on a planning application stage, so much of the design actually will change. So the consultation that we had is basically to move forward where we have moved. So the specific is probably we can involve you in where we say what can work as a group. But obviously there's a caveat. We have to understand that there's a covenant on that. Probably Kari can add on that, but probably it's something we can take forward as one of the action as well, to go and consult more in terms of the specifics of what can be workable, where we have to vary different size, on particular, let's say, given on the Muslim barriers, for example.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I mean, ODS do run for us a really strong burial service, and in terms of certainly some of the details of requirements in the Muslim faith, and I know from a lot of consultation, there are different types of burials, and again, different from around the country as well. Different Muslim communities or Muslim families sort of choose slightly different types, but yeah, obviously the casket is bigger, and then the burial plots are slightly bigger, and there's various requirements. But yeah, some families of Muslim faith would choose sort of to have, as Lubna was alluding to, have family members in the same plot, whereas many wouldn't. So just to really share that, there's different types of burials in the Muslim faith. And again, we're in consultation. We're obviously, our ODS provide service for all those types at the moment. So that will continue, as I said. And then it's very much down to individual families and their faith belief systems as to which type of burial they would choose. But as I said, we'd be seeking to continue the current provision in terms of the different types. So that, I think Lubna speaks to that. I mean, of course, it's more efficient in land usage in terms of where councils for family groups do double burials or triple burials for different families, and some faiths choose that, some don't, or some families would and some wouldn't. I think then in terms of the ODS point, just to come on to, of course, I think great progress has been made really in understanding between the two organisations. Obviously ODS provide services and councils make these investment projects. So I'm pleased with the progress we've made to date on that, and confident that we can sort of draw the strengths of both organisations really on the project. I don't know, Emma, if you want to add anything.
I think it would probably depend on how detailed an answer you want in terms of how we're structuring the deal as to whether we maybe take that into the confidential session.
If you think that some of the information may be exempt, let's do that. Ian, do you have something to add?
I was just going to kind of knit together a little bit the Altaf's question in relation to changes and the quality impact assessment. So the only changes that proposed are the ones in relation to planning and design. We're not planning LTAF to change how we deliver the burials. If we find better ways to do things going forward, but within this proposal, there aren't the changes, and hopefully we continue to have conversations with the deaf committees. We've got our next interfaith partnership on the 28th. So we've got a face-to-face meeting where we'll talk through progress. And Councillor Munkongo, I had a meeting with Councillor Rahman yesterday, who flagged that he had conversations within the mosque. So I think lots of work has been done to make sure we are going above and beyond and doing a solid assessment of the impact and understanding that impact, and we'll continue to have those conversations. On Mark's point, I was actually flashing back, Chair. I think this might have started on your watch, actually, when you were actually had the portfolio for this area. Thinking back, I might be wrong. It's a bit of a memory test going back pre-2011. And the point in relation to the Oxford model, in relation to the model that's really a key part of the council's financial stability. And clearly, we're looking up and down the country, and Birmingham issued a 141 notice today in relation to financial challenges. The model works well for us, and that was part of the LGA review that really flagged how we've structured the model. So the position in point 26 in relation to the benefit and then flowing into the group, it goes into the group position. That's ultimately what impacts the council's finances, and that's how we've tried to reflect that. So no, we do not think that the agreement with ODS confuses things. We actually think it really supports the delivery of this burial site. It certainly supports the delivery of the works, and also getting the works done in a timely, effective manner. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Ian, and thank you for reminding me that this used to be part of my portfolio. And why do you think I have less hair than I used to? Okay, we have at least one question on the confidential appendices. So I would like to propose that we move into confidential session in order to prevent the disclosure of exempt information as described in section 100A2 of the Local Government Act 1972. Is that agreed? Good. Okay, I'm looking at